Governments love standardization, always have. Same form, same rules, same boxes, same answers. The problem was scale. Humans are slow, they're inconsistent, and they are very annoying. But hooray, now there's AI, the perfect bureaucrat. No lunch breaks, no empathy, no context, just rules and patterns and enforcement at machine speed. When states say that AI will improve efficiency, what they really mean is that it removes the friction between policy and people. Before AI, bureaucracy had limits. A human clerk could bend a rule, a teacher could interpret a guideline, a social worker could use their judgment. AI does not do judgment, it does compliance. And once you plug AI into government systems such as welfare, education, healthcare, immigration, policing, standardization just explodes. Every citizen becomes a data profile, every decision becomes an automated outcome. Same inputs, same outputs, and that is not neutral. That right there is power. AI doesn't invent new rules, it hardens the existing ones. It freezes policy into code, and code does not forgive, it does not forget, and it doesn't even reconsider. So, from the state's point of view, this is heaven. From a citizen's point of view, this is Kafka with just faster Wi Fi. Suddenly, you're not arguing with a person, you're appealing to a system that cannot explain itself and cannot be persuaded. The system says no, becomes, and that is the end of the conversation. That's how AI quietly scales state control, not through force, but through frictionless administration. And here is where it gets interesting. AI doesn't just standardize rules, it standardizes people. Once the state decides what a good student or an eligible citizen or low risk individual looks like, AI enforces that model across millions of lives instantly. If you deviate from the pattern, you don't get arrested. You just don't qualify for things. No loans, no permits, no benefits, no access. That is softer than violence, but it's way more effective. And because AI systems learn from historical data, they replicate old assumptions at scale. Past biases become future policies, and they become automated, they become deniable, and very, very hard to challenge. Governments will say, it's not us, it's the algorithm. But the algorithm was trained on their priorities. AI now becomes the perfect shield because there is no minister to blame. There is no official to confront, just technical limitations. And once these systems are integrated across departments, standardization compounds. Your education data talks to your employment data, and that talks to your health profile, which talks to your creditworthiness. Suddenly, the state doesn't need ideology, it just needs interoperability. This is bureaucracy at its finest. It is seamless, it's invisible, and it's absolute. The unnerving part in all of this is that most people are accepted because it just feels convenient. You'll get faster services, you'll get fewer queues, you'll get less paperwork. And that is how you trade discretion for speed without noticing the actual real cost. AI also solves a problem that governments have struggled with forever: enforcement without confrontation. You don't need police everywhere if access itself is conditional. You don't need censorship if algorithms quietly downrank or delay or deny. So, governance is built within the architecture. The system is designed a certain way, behavior naturally follows. People adapt, they self correct, they stop pushing boundaries because pushing no longer works. That is why AI is so attractive to bureaucracies. It turns governance into infrastructure. The roads don't argue with you, traffic lights don't negotiate with you, and neither does AI. And because AI systems are sold as objective, resistance sounds irrational. Who are you to argue with data, almighty math, with evidence based policy? But here is the catch: AI doesn't understand reality. It understands models, and models are simplifications chosen by the people in power. When those models become mandatory, society just flattens. Complexity becomes a bug, not a feature. Things like cultural differences or moral disagreements and edge cases, they get completely erased. The system doesn't care if it's unfair. only whether it is consistent. So standardization happens at machine scale. It is clean, it's efficient, very inhuman. And let's be honest, once a state tastes this level of control, there's no going back. AI reduces political risk. Every decision becomes technical, and accountability dissolves into dashboards and metrics. Leaders stop persuading the nation or the people and they start optimizing them. Citizens stop debating and they start complying with whatever has been presented to them. This is why AI governance is not just a tool, it is a structural upgrade to the modern state. Not authoritarian in style, but administrative in substance. You won't feel oppressed, you'll feel processed. And by the time people realize what they have lost, they've already lost their discretion, their negotiation, their humanity, and the systems will be too embedded to unwind because removing AI would mean that we have to reintroduce humans. And humans are inefficient, they're unpredictable, and they are difficult to control. That's the real reason AI scales state standardization. It replaces messy human judgment with clean automated order. Whether that order serves the people or just manages them is the question that nobody in power wants to answer out loud. So now let's talk about why this hits everyday life harder than people actually expect. AI doesn't arrive as a Robocop or some sci-fi overlord kicking down doors. No, it arrives as a smart upgrade. It can be branded as smarter school placement or maybe smarter welfare screening or smarter risk assessment or smarter hiring filters. Each upgrade sounds boring, almost reasonable actually, even helpful at times, but stack them together and you don't get freedom. You get a cage made from convenience. The moment AI becomes the default decision maker, opting out stops being neutral. It becomes suspicious. If you don't fit the model doesn't bend. It flags you, and flags don't disappear. One anomaly is noise. Two is a pattern. Three becomes identity. Suddenly you're classified as high risk or low priority or non compliant without committing a single crime or breaking a single rule. This is how AI scales judgment without accountability. In the old system, you could explain yourself, you could argue context, you could escalate to another human being who could have a reasonable conversation with you, or maybe at least help you understand where you may have gone wrong. But with AI, there is nothing to escalate to. The decision lives inside layers of models no frontline worker understands and no official wants to override. Bureaucracy used to be slow and frustrating, but it was porous. Humans leaked judgment. AI seals all of those pores. Outcomes becomes faster and cleaner and much harder to contest because the thing is, the state no longer needs to threaten you when it can quietly downgrade you. Supporters will say, "Oh, come on, man, relax. This makes government fairer. Same rules for everyone, no favoritism, less corruption." And that is not entirely wrong, but fairness inside a system is not the same thing as justice in real life. Treating unequal people equally almost produces unequal outcomes. AI does not understand intent. It doesn't understand history. It doesn't understand your trauma or circumstance. It understands patterns. If your life does not resemble the dominant pattern, the system assumes the deviation is the problem, not the model. That is especially dangerous in diverse societies where culture and language and family structure and economics don't fit neatly into spreadsheets. Standardization punishes differences, it always has. AI just does it at scale. And because these systems are expensive and technically complex, power centralizes upward. Local discretion disappears completely over time. Teachers will eventually stop teaching and smart manage dashboards. I know that you probably thought about China there, but doctors will stop judging and start following protocols. Officials stop deciding and they start enforcing scores. Maybe ICE is how they are testing this out in real time. Who knows? Everyone becomes an operator, though, inside someone else's model. And slowly, authority changes its mindset. The question is no longer, is this right? It becomes, is this consistent? That shift matters more than any single law. It turns governance from moral reasoning into system maintenance. When consistency replaces judgment, the human element is not removed, it's subordinated. Essentially, you're being patted down into submission. The deeper issue here is dependency. Once AI runs the machinery of governance, removing it becomes politically impossible because budgets depend on it. Performance metrics depend on it. Public promises depend on it. The state that governs through AI cannot tolerate ambiguity because ambiguity breaks models and ruins dashboards. So society gets nudged, not forced, nudged toward conformity. You don't rebel, you adapt. You learn what behaviors score well. You avoid what triggers friction. You shape your life around incentives you did not design and rules that you can't even see. All of that is your freedom being optimized away. And the most dangerous part is that most people defend the system because when AI works for you, it feels invisible, feels efficient, feels fair. It's only when it doesn't work, then you start getting denied and delayed and downgraded. Then you realize how absolute it is. And by then, there is no counter desk. There is no appeal to common sense. There's no human discretion to lean on. Bureaucracy used to fail loudly. You could point to the person who messed up, but AI fails quietly. Quiet failures don't spark protest, they create resignation. Resignation is far more useful to power than resistance. The bottom line here is that AI doesn't make the state smarter, it makes the state more consistent. Consistency is not a moral virtue, it's an administrative one. When you scale standardization with AI, you don't just automate paperwork, you automate values. You encode priorities and you freeze assumptions into systems that touch education and healthcare, employment, mobility, and access to resources. Once those assumptions are baked into the system, changing them becomes extremely costly without breaking the entire system. That is why reform gets harder, not easier. No one is trying to reject technology or pretend that we can rewind progress, but we should be recognizing what AI amplifies. AI amplifies whatever structure that it is plugged into. In a flexible, humane system, it can reduce friction and help people. In a rigid, centralized one, it becomes a multiplier of control. And the trippy part about all of this is how boring and inconsequential it all looks. There are no uniforms, nothing loud to announce the changes. It's just quietly efficient through reports and clean dashboards, while the system steadily decides who fits, who qualifies, and who quietly falls through the cracks. Bureaucracy at its finest doesn't shout. It processes quietly in the background until you can no longer shake it off.